What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Pop Cult Cast, where we tell you everything that's happening within the pop cult. Kayla, I want to ask you quick. Does this feel like we've been doing this forever now? I feel like we're in such a swing of this.
Feels like a long time, yes.
Right. But we are so happy to be back for another episode. We're going to be talking from things from Jordan Peele's Nope. We're going to have a little discussion on that, all the way to Marvel happenings. But first, Caleb, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing phenomenal. Like, we just watched a lot of the new films coming out of the San Diego Comic-Con's trailers, and my hype is through the roof. I feel like this has been a great year for releases. There's been a lot to look forward to, and there's still a lot more to look forward to. So I'm in great spirits. What about you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. And like you said, we reacted to almost everything from San Diego Comic-Con, and that's going to be a video form. So go ahead and check that out when it's up. But yeah, other than that, I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling great. We're heading into another episode of some really good topics. I can't wait to talk about them. So without wasting time, we're going to go straight into it. Like we said, San Diego Comic-Con happened this weekend. It's still occurring right now. I don't know what time it's ending today, but there's still some little rumblings today. But we've got the big bulk of everything. And the big thing that happened was the whole Marvel sort of rollout. And like I said from last podcast, I told you guys I was going to watch Thor: Love and Thunder, but unfortunately, I did not watch the movie. As a whole conversation we're going to have about Marvel fatigue. But before we get into that, I do want to go over the plans of the phases coming up. Caleb, did you see any of the new phases, new titles coming out?
No, I saw the picture that had every new title, what you saw like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
that had like Captain America, Civil War, Avengers, Infinity War.
Right.
So I gotta say, looking at what's coming up, I am feeling a little relieved whenever I saw the Avengers Secrets of Kang or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's the Kang Dynasty. That's what
yeah. That I needed to know that was coming. I needed to know we had our big bad villain. Felt like we had it in Loki, but I didn't see the commitment to it outside of that TV show. And it was a big deal. And I'm excited with where we're going. Hopefully, I don't have the same feeling actually watching these that I have with Phase 4. Because I think we're officially ending Phase 4, yes?
Yes. And
terrible phase.
Right.
Awful phase.
Right. Well, real quick, let's go over the whole plans that they're going over. So Phase 4 is officially ending with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So that's going to be the last film of Phase 4. Going into Phase 5, we got first film coming out, if they don't change stuff, because I think, well, actually, the only reason why Phase 4 was kind of shifted around was because of COVID. So this looks pretty locked in. So we're looking at Ant-Man and Wasp, Quantumania, Secret Invasion, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Echo, Loki Season 2, The Marvels, Blade, Ironheart, Agatha Coven of Chaos, Daredevil Born Again, Captain America New World Order, and the Thunderbolts for Phase 5. And they already have what's planned for Phase 6, which is, if I'm not mistaken, if they don't add other stuff into it, it's only a 3-project phase, which is going to be Fantastic Four, and then Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, and Avengers: Secret Wars. So that's leading up to 2025. So we got 3 years of new Marvel projects already planned out. And honestly, even though I'm pretty Marvel fatigued out, which we're going to talk about in a minute here, like you said, I'm pretty reinvigorated. I'm back. I guess I'm back in the whole Marvel loop a little bit. These projects look really good, and hopefully we can move away from the Phase 4 sort of lull and really get into some of the meat with his new Marvel projects. But yeah, what's your thoughts on some of these newer projects? What are you excited for?
I'm excited for, what's coming up most recently, Black Panther 2. I'm excited for Ironheart was announced for 2025, yes?
For 2023, fall 2023.
Woo!
Yeah, so
next year.
Pretty soon, yeah.
I'm going to be excited for that. And Ant-Man Quantumania. I feel like I'm only excited for that because I feel like I haven't had the real multiverse film. I feel like as a fan, Multiverse of Madness disappointing. And in some ways, No Way Home too, yeah. Like we got the original 3 Spider-Man, but like,
no.
you know, that's all in the grand scheme of the MCU. And I'm not saying that No Way Home was a disappointment in of itself. I'm talking about like this whole phase, like what they've delivered on the multiverses. It's been so little. And we know, and what makes it suck is we know from Loki how vast and big of a deal the multiverse actually is.
Right.
So after watching Loki, I feel like in a way it's taken something away from all these films. Like somebody said Tony Stark is dead. Oh, well, not in that universe.
Yeah.
That one, you know?
Right. So my mouth kind of dropped that you were excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp because I've never been a huge Ant-Man. Like ever since the first one, I was like, man, Ant-Man is kind of a drag. But like then you reminded me that this film has heavily implications to the multiverse, and it's like, you know what, that'll probably draw me in. And then I don't know if this was common knowledge before this Comic-Con, but like I saw that this saga, the new saga, was officially called the Multiverse Saga. So, like you said, the multiverse is a huge thing for this saga. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of multiverses, because you know you can kind of pull some stuff out of the old magic rabbit hat, and it's like whatever. But in terms of projects I'm excited for, you know, I'm a pretty big fan of Daredevil. I watched the whole Daredevil Netflix thing, and I don't know if you knew, but this new series, Daredevil Born Again, is going to be 18 episodes. So it's going to be, it's a whole, whole thing. Like the whole average of like the new Disney Plus shows are like, what, 6 episodes, maybe 8 sometimes. So for there to be an 18 episode series coming out, that's huge. And it's also, you know, there's going to be Wilson Fisk in there. Everybody's coming back. So I'm curious though, what the whole title, like, what do they mean by Born Again, right? In our reaction video, we did see a little glimpse of Daredevil, and his suit has definitely changed. But like, what has he been going through since, you know, the Netflix series, right? What's his whole character arc this time around?
And that stuff is canon, right?
Yeah, it's canon. I also heard rumblings that the whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to have some type of implications for what's coming up. I'm like, I'm a little sad because that series was not the best. So I'm not.
No, I never really cared for it.
Right. So if I had to go back and watch that, I'm going to be so like, I don't want to watch that at all. But you know what? This phase 5 and going to phase 6 definitely look promising. But I do want to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder a little bit and where I'm kind of at with Marvel. So with Thor: Love and Thunder, I did not see it, like I said. And it's sort of because I'm kind of falling out of love with the whole MCU sort of structure right now. I think one of the biggest reasons is that I kind of realized that with some of these Marvel projects, all I'm really there for is the end credit scene. And at the end of the day, like I'm just reminiscing back to times of when I'm going to the movies, watching these films, and I'm watching it for the pure joy of, you know, seeing these comic book characters on film. And right how it is now is that if I'm just going there to see what's coming next and just staying there for the after credits and the implications of the bigger MCU, I feel like I'm not enjoying the projects for what I want to enjoy them as. So I'm just kind of on that back burner. And even though like I'm pretty dramatic and saying I'm quitting the MCU, I'm not really. I think I'm going to be very selective in what I watch from now on, especially with how they kind of just put these films on Disney Plus, you know, maybe a month afterward, kind of depending on how successful the movie is. So that's sort of where I'm at. Phase 4, I think, which I'm really surprised about, because I think I see a lot of stands for phase 4 on Twitter, like kind of defending how like, oh, it's so good. Like, but I think the vast majority of the MCU community does not like phase 4, even though I think it's for the wrong reasons. Like I was watching a video the other day, and the person that was explaining why phase 4 is so bad is because there isn't a lot of connecting storylines. I'm like, first of all, I think the only thing you can compare phase 4 to is phase 1, because let's call it what it is. This phase 4 is just the start of a new saga, right? So I'm not expecting for there to be some like overlapping storylines going on, some like very deep plots. This is essentially just to build up new heroes to, you know, culminate to what's to come. And I'm all for the ride for that. But like I said, the only thing you can compare it to is phase 1. But when you compare phase 1 projects to phase 4, phase 1 projects completely blow phase 4 projects out of the water in terms of quality. And maybe like maybe it's a nostalgia factor, but like the quality of those like Iron Man 1, Captain America 1, like all
those,
just
a
like,
better film.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it just was.
And it's like I wonder if like there's a whole bunch of questions running through my mind. Like, will these series like Moon Knight be more successful if it was a movie, or if it was like a short little mini series? I mean, which it was, but like maybe just more time to develop. And it's just like I feel like with the MCU right now, there's definitely more quality concerns than there was before. Kayla, I'm curious what you think about the MCU right now. What you thought about Thor: Love and Thunder, everything about that.
So first thing, Thor: Love and Thunder was, I put it like in the same vein as the first Thor film. I feel like none of the Thor films, with the exception of Ragnarok, have been particularly strong. Even the first one, in the first phase, it wasn't a particularly great film. It was decent. It was passable, and that's what it was with this one. And that was disappointing to me because you have Christian Bale in the film.
Oh, right, and I've been hearing that he was literally the best part of that film, and I have no doubt.
Like, oh yeah, he crushed it.
Yeah,
like you could tell, like he's how gifted as an actor he was in comparison to everybody else. Like he just is that good. Like he's in, I'm pretty sure he's won an Oscar in recent years. I think he won it for Vice. But he's an award-winning actor, and it shows. And they also the villain was cool. Gore was cool, like very cool abilities. They were used interestingly, but overall the film just meh. You had that nice little MCU nostalgia feeling, and then you went home and you reflect, and you're like, you know what? Maybe it just wasn't as good as it could have been. Like, why didn't it? Why didn't it, blow me away like some other MCU films have? But I think you're right to call it a fatigue.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. We talk about the MCU quite a bit because there's just so much stuff coming out. It's immensely popular, so we have to talk about it. And I really am. I don't want to watch something from the MCU every single month. I kind of think that franchises like Star Wars, they kind of understand the game. You get a Star Wars film and maybe a TV show once a year right now. Whenever the Star Wars movies were coming out, they had The Force Awakens, and then they had like Solo or Rogue One. And then the next year they had, the second of the sequel trilogy, and then another Solo the next year. It was spaced out to where it made going to the cinema in December an event, because it wasn't something that you were doing weekly. And I think Disney Plus has heard it. I can just wait or even watch the shows right on Disney Plus from the comfort of my home. And there's just so much to it altogether.
Yeah.
Like Phase 4 felt bloated, absolutely bloated. And the sad thing is I don't feel like anything much really went on. I feel like nothing about Phase 4 was actually good. Like, what made Infinity War so great was it was one of the first times we had seen the MCU kill off main characters. They killed off Loki, at least then. And then they had the snap, and you knew the other characters going to be back, but you were like, oh my God, I just watched, Black Panther die. I just watched all these different characters die. Like, what the hell? If you were to kill off a character now for emotional weight, gravity, whatever, who would you do it? Like, which character would you kill from Phase 4 that would have a huge impact in the same way that Iron Man dying, or Black Widow, who didn't even have her own solo film at the time, dying? Like, who would you choose? None of them for me. Like, they all are fucking boring,
Right. I mean, and I kind of reacted to you saying that Phase 4 is, I mean, I agree with Phase 4 being bloated, but like the early Phase 4 projects, like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki, I think those are fairly strong projects. I think just everything else is sort of just misses the mark. And I don't want it to be just because that these characters are established, but that's what it is, right? And because it's not a thing of like the new characters are bad and like just that, just there hasn't been that time to build them up. And the projects they do have that are released now are just bad and like mediocre. So like you said, if if there's a character to die in Phase 4, like who would care? Because there's not a lot of interesting characters left, but like interesting dynamics. So yeah, like I think some changes need to be made before we hit up phase 5. And hopefully, you know, all this is just biding time and like making us care. But like you said, like it's just not the best. Let's see.
And, you know, I feel like if they were to take like Moon Knight, for example, because you and I feel like we both have really harsh criticisms of that show, and they were to put that character in, say, Multiverse of Madness, for whatever reason, he was just in it and he was teaming up with Doctor Strange and he was just, you know, kind of like the sidekick. I feel like we would care that much more. You know, so I do feel like having them appear next to the other characters helps. I feel like that's why, you know, I kind of automatically like She-Hulk better than most of the other characters. She has that proximity to Hulk, you know, that emotional tie-in, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that, you know, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, what those characters really need is a good show. Or a good movie, like something that's actually good that we'll think about and be like, oh, wow, did you watch, you know, season 2 of Moon Knight was just so sick.
Mm-hmm.
Or that new Moon Knight movie, it was amazing. Or Miss Marvel was so cool in, you know, whatever film. But they don't have that. You know, even the Black Widow film, which was finally, you know, Scarlett Johansson getting her just deserves with the Black Widow film, that film was not good. It was very, very lame in many parts. And also they made Black Widow a war criminal, which just will never sit well with me. That was just in a theater with children, you know, all excited. It was just like, yep, there's just Black Widow casually murdering children.
Right. Well, something I did want to bring up is that the term for this whole thing is like superhero fatigue. But I think what we're kind of explaining is that it's more so MCU fatigue, right? The whole structure of it right now, where there is a new project every month, we really have no break from MCU, you know, culture, right? But then I realized that, like, you know, things like the Batman and, you know, upcoming DC projects is like, I'm excited for those because, like, I know that there's not an interloping universe where I have to watch this film to understand this film. They're just really their own separate stories, and I love that. And it's sort of like, if there's anybody to come up and sort of overtake the MCU, which is going to be a huge undertaking, would be DC, because they can learn from the MCU's mistakes. They can see what doesn't work and what does work. So they have a huge leg up in seeing, you know, the giant in front of them and seeing, okay, they messed up here and they messed up there. Let's not do it with us. But even though they're in the midst of like a whole bunch of drama with their actors, you know, I think that the DCEU is set up for something really good, and that, you know, like I said, they have their own little thing going on. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at for the new Marvel projects. Any last comments on, you know, the phase coming up? What you're feeling about Marvel?
No, not for me.
Gotcha.
Like, it's that fatigue, man. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Exactly, right? Well, speaking about fatigue, I think the world is about sick of celebrities messing up the environment. We got Kylie Jenner labeled as the climate criminal along with Travis Scott. I believe the story goes is that they were taking like really short flights and things they could have done in just a car drive. Or what do you know more about the topic?
Yeah, so apparently Kylie Jenner will use her private jet for anything, any type of travel, no matter how minute.
Yeah.
And one of them, they said it was a 45-minute drive that she took a 3-minute flight to. And, you know, I don't think you and I are probably going to ever have like yacht, private jet money.
Right.
But I would think that if I did so happen to think I was important enough where people needed me present all over the country at all points in time where I needed a private jet, I would opt for the car in a 45-minute situation. Like, you telling me like she doesn't have some souped up vehicle with a chauffeur that can make that 45 minutes pleasant? Like, what else is she gonna do besides post on Instagram what time was saved?
You know, I think it's funny too, because we are Midwesterners. So we just love to drive, right? We'll be out there, hey, be like, if someone tells us an hour drive, we're like, hey, no problem. I mean, in these gas prices, but like back a few years ago, like if someone tells me there's an hour drive, I'll be down, like put the windows down and just, you know, just cruise. Like, I love driving as a Midwesterner. So like for us, like, go ahead.
Could you imagine taking a private jet from like Arnold to North County though? Like that's
Right.
like the equivalent. It's the same drive.
It's
Like
like,
it's so
bruh.
insane.
Right. And it's like, yeah, that whole thing is just crazy. But like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you haven't watched anything of like I think they not rebooted, but like they have a new series of a Kardashian reality show. And I've watched clips on Twitter and like, Kylie Jenner is the same person that hasn't been grocery shopping in forever. Like I know there's a scene in the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, or I think it's called the Kardashians with this season. And like they're literally just like so awestruck of like the grocery store and like the dynamics. And it's like these people do not live the same lives we do. They are like on a whole different other like I think how that scene started is that Kylie wanted to do something with her mom, Chris, and like they thought that something fun to do would be to go grocery shopping. Let's do something novel for like a second. Like they had so much fun grocery shopping because they have their whole like little infrastructure to where they get their food probably delivered all the time, right? So it's like while this is terrible, it like I think that they live a whole different other life than we do, right? And it's sort of hard to sort of put our mind in that whole realm, but like, yeah, I think it's very interesting to see that going on.
I think it's just so crazy because if you think about like the private jet thing and the limo and the grocery shopping, you see how much like other people really do contribute to the Kardashian empire that aren't ever going to have the luxury of taking a private jet. Like think about all the people that work on our shows, the chauffeurs, right. the pilot, all these people that are saving Kylie Jenner time. So, she can go grocery shopping one time and it's a novel thing.
Right. Have you ever seen the clip of them like of the grocery shopping? No. Dude, if you get when you get the time, watch that clip because it's literally like watching like a zoo animal. Just doing just doing things that like you're just so awestruck at how surprised they are of how something like this so regular. Like if you saw like a polar bear playing with a ball and just having the time of his life, like you're like that's pretty like wholesome. Like, but seeing them like feel like they're like in like Narnia or something in a grocery store is like so funny because like
it reminds me of Ellen having like billionaires on her show. Like I think she had Bill Gates and was asking him to name the prices of regular like grocery lists. Mm-hmm. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed at the same time. I was like, yo, this kind of scary. So my man's out here thinking like a tiny bag of pizza rolls is like $20, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so you have employees in your company that are getting paid like the minimum wage, like $7.25, whether it's a janitor all the way at the bottom of Microsoft or whatever, but you're paying somebody like less than what you think a bag of pizza rolls is worth. Like that's kind of criminal, my guy.
Literally. But yeah, a little funny sort of out there news. But speaking about hated celebrities, we got some J.K. Rowling news circulating. Caleb, you want to take us a little bit into that?
So this is about Quidditch. So J.K. Rowling is the creator of the Harry Potter universe. Wrote all the books, oversaw the movies. She created a game in this fictional world called Quidditch. I'm not going to go into the rules or explain it, but essentially, it's some people and some brooms flying around trying to get a ball through some goalposts like soccer and catch a golden snitch to automatically win. Mm-hmm. And people made that into a game in real life. So you'll see like athletes, quotations athletes, because every picture I've ever seen of it being played, it's just like people playing
so
pickup,
right? Yeah.
They're running around on brooms. Like it looks almost like a witch LARP, but they're playing a sports game. Well, there's an actual Quidditch league, and they took the idea from J.K. Rowling to do Quidditch in real life, and they are rebranding themselves as Quadball to distance themselves from J.K. Rowling and J.K. Rowling's rhetoric. Specifically, they cited the transphobic rhetoric J.K. Rowling has been using. And for those that do not know, what was it, about a year ago, J.K. Rowling just came out and went like full anti-trans, like just let the world be known, like, hey, everybody, I know I'm a beloved children's author, but I really got to let you know where I side on this issue. And it wasn't just like a single hot take, right? Mm-hmm. This woman is like made it her identity right now. Like she tweets about it all the time.
Yeah.
Like almost every day, like in, other narratives. She's very obsessed. So some people want a distance. I can understand people not wanting to, like me personally, this is my take on it, not wanting to be associated with harmful rhetoric. Like, who does want to be associated with that type of rhetoric?
Mm-hmm.
But Quidditch is a game that was invented by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
Like, whether you call it quad ball or not, I'm sure you're playing a game that this person invented.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the renaming actually distances the game of quad ball from Quidditch. It distances itself from Harry Potter more so than it does. Because I don't think if I was walking through the park and I saw people playing Quidditch, I'd be like, look at those transphobes. No, I'd be like, look at those Harry Potter fans, playing a game they enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's, got to hurt their league. And also, coming on the, bad side of a billionaire that probably has a team of lawyers that would be eager to sue you for copyright infringement. I feel like that rebranding and letting the world know how much you didn't side with her may backfire. Yeah. But that's my take.
Right. I mean, I put the exact same notes in my little podcast notes before the show. Is like, I mean, sure, changing a name is cool, like little solidarity or whatever. But like, the whole DNA of your sport is forever entrenched in Harry Potter. So like, end of the day, if you really want to protest, is like that sport just needs to kind of go away. I mean, that because for everybody looking at that sport, it's Harry Potter immediately in your brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, come on, people, like. I don't think anybody's really sort of talking to you guys like, oh, we hate you guys because you're using the same, sport. But like this whole situation kind of reminds me back when I don't know if it was E3, but there was a presentation of the new Hogwarts or Harry Potter game called Hogwarts Legacy, and people were uprising, saying like I would not play this game because of J.K. Rowling. And it's like it's one of those situations where I know this is a little maybe not empathetic, but like. I'm a huge believer in separating the art from the artist. I know people don't really agree with that sometimes, but like if you think that I'm not going to play an open world Harry Potter game, the biggest scale Harry Potter game that looks actually decent because J.K. Rowling said some bad stuff, like you're out of your mind. Like I'm going to play that game. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to celebrate all the people who worked on this game, all the resources that were put in this game to make something. A project that people will love. I'm not going to let this person, ruin that. I'm going to support the people who put the love into it, right? And you know what? Like, I'm so, like, even if this does line J.K. Rowling's pockets, like, it's just something that me as a kid wanting for this long, a whole open world Harry Potter game, I'm going to play it. So it's like, I'm curious to know, like, I'm curious in your opinion, because we're both fans of Kanye West, and that's like a huge kind of defense point. It's separating the art from the artist. What do you think about that whole message?
Well, I actually don't think about Kanye West. I think about Michael Jackson, right? So okay. Michael Jackson, you can even say Elvis Presley too, because I'm not sure if I mentioned on the show, I went to see the movie about him. Well, I found out some things about him. So the King of Rock and the King of Pop both have some, accusations and things with pedophilia.
Elvis had a pedophile accusation?
So not just accusation. So Priscilla Presley was 14 when he started dating her. He was in the army after he'd already been famous. Yeah. No. And I read some other things I'm not gonna get into because it's actually pretty grimy and gross. Mm-hmm. And Michael Jackson also, they had that Finding Neverland documentary that expanded upon what Michael Jackson went to court for previously. That he was inappropriately touching and grooming children. Billie Jean still smacks.
Right.
I'm not thinking about Michael Jackson the person or glorifying Michael Jackson at all whenever I'm appreciating that song. Am I going to go around trying to share, music or things from people I know are problematic? Not always, unless it's, something recent like Kanye West released something. It's like, oh, you got to listen to this. And that's me always separating, the art from the artist. Because the sad thing is, in this world, if you want to keep those two together at all points in time, always thinking about J.K. Rowling whenever Harry Potter comes up, you're going to have to cut off a lot of things.
Right.
My goodness, the world was a pretty terrible place 300 years ago. And a lot of art does take inspiration from those older things,
Right. It's like, how far does that rabbit hole go, right? Like, because I don't want to say it's a thing of like people wanting to be like so outwardly virtuous to where it's almost like a performative act, but like if you really want to dig into like deep into stuff, like some of your favorite media probably has some racist undertones that they like hundreds of years ago, and it's like, dude, like come on, like you're being a little bit overzealous about this sort of thing, right? And I totally get, her rhetoric is deemed wrong, but at the same time, like I just, as me as a person, that I don't want to like brag and say I'm a free thinker, but like I those type of things I can separate so easily. So when people do have this sort of viral reaction, is like, think of how much media, think of how much cool shit that you're missing out on because of one person. Think of think of all the people that had to make this project and make something that they can love out of this, make like developing this for years, and you're just kind of like throwing that away for one person's bad activity. It's like,
yeah, and I think it also hurts like regular working people, because I'm sure that there's just like low-level game designers on the new Harry Potter game that are excited to share what they've created with other people, but you're reducing their work and the project they worked on to a single person. And it may be in the person that brained up the entire Harry Potter universe. But even with like something like Michael Jackson's music, there were still producers that were there, other musicians that put their heart and soul into making a great piece of music. If anything, it's unfortunate for them that, people will associate something they made with that one flawed individual.
Right. But yeah, that's definitely a situation that's going on. But speaking of beloved properties, Winnie-the-Pooh is becoming a horror movie. Winnie-the-Pooh is becoming a horror movie. So Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey is the movie title. Officially got his poster released, and man, does it look
creepy. Looks awesome.
Yeah,
it looks awesome.
Creepy, awesome, all that, all the above. And it sort of reminded me that of the world of public domain and copyright. It's my fault, and I wanted to do more research on how copyright becomes a public domain, but like I was thinking of how much of an interesting world that is, seeing like what other sort of projects can become this can go from copyright to public domain to where anybody can use it and make art out of it. Because at the end of the day, like even though this new movie seems kind of memey and just kind of ridiculous, like that's what we kind of need in the film industry right now, is just like ridiculous sort of things that we can all like view as a spectacle and just kind of like laugh at it. And even, because I'm sure this is going to have some type of cult following after this, right? It's like,
oh, dude, I feel like it's almost like a thinly veiled threat at places like Disney and stuff like that have intellectual properties that have a ticking time bomb. Like Mickey Mouse should be in the public domain. So we could get like a crossover Winnie-the-Pooh slasher meets Mickey Mouse, like Mickey versus Winnie.
That'll be lit. Like especially like looking at that reminded me of like the whole like Freddy versus Jason. Like imagine like a slasher version of like Mickey Mouse going against Winnie-the-Pooh in the game. But looking at the synopsis, I think it's like so Winnie-the-Pooh and I believe it's what, Piglet is his name? I forgot exactly.
Yep. Yeah, Piglet.
I think they ate Eeyore and they're just going insane. So it's like, yeah, it's just really goofy, but I love it. But I did want to pose a question. It's kind of a hard question because I don't even know the answer to this for me. If you could choose any copyrighted material to enter public domain and other artists can use it to their free will, what would you pick?
Easy, Star Wars.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
easy.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was thinking of like how wrong that can go, but like how wrong can something go when something's already this low, right? So that's what I was thinking too.
Dude, think about how amazing it would be if that was in the public domain. Like you could get your friends together and say, hey, we're gonna max out our credit cards and we're gonna try and make a Star Wars movie that's just set in like a cantina. It has nothing to do with the overall universe. Just, like two smugglers have a shootout in a cantina, and we're gonna, send it to theaters. We're gonna get a commercial release because we can. That would be awesome. Like, think about all the YouTube videos you've seen of the fan edits or fan creations that were just so sick that those people actually, can't really monetize because their work is with an IP that they don't own.
Right.
So I would choose Star Wars, like not even batting an eye.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually have a question for you too.
Let's go.
Okay. All right, let's say you write a screenplay, becomes a film, becomes a mega franchise.
Okay.
You know, at the ripe age of 30. So you're young and you get to enjoy your life, your wealth that comes with making something like so big. How long is actually fair to you to let you keep the copyright and that's fair to others? Because I think it's 50 years right now.
50?
50 years before things go in the public domain. I think you have to actually go to court and like fight it.
Okay.
Like Disney does at that point.
Right. Because looking at this whole story, I remember seeing that it was Winnie-the-Pooh has been copyrighted for 95 years, and now it's just recently, you know, entering public domain. But
maybe it's 100.
100, yeah, something like that. But in terms of like if I made something that was pretty beloved and you know it's copyrighted, and the amount of time I wanted to enter public domain is like, in my personal opinion, I think it should be when I die. So hopefully a good grip of time. But like I think it's so dope for things to enter public domain in that way, because like at the same time there could be like a whole estate that wants to do something with that, but like it's actually really a question.
Yo, this is wild. Okay.
You got an update?
Well, I tried to find out how long it was, and it said generally, if something was published before 1923, it is in the public domain. If it was an unpublished work and the author died over 70 years ago, it is in the public domain. So if I write some really crappy rom-com, you know, 120 pages, and I stuff it in a desk, die in 120 in 70 years, people can use my really crappy desk rom-com. Like, who would actually go through the work of putting an unpublished work in the public domain?
Right. And be like, wow, this is some really good material here. This could have been something, right? But yeah, that like the whole public domain thing is just such a, I think in my notes I put it like it's such a fantastical world, because like all the artists that can now put their hands on it and get their whole spin on this IP, especially when it's something so beloved like Winnie-the-Pooh is so classic. It's just like, that's dope, man. This creative juice is flowing. But
wait, does this mean is Dracula in the public domain?
Ooh.
Dracula is in the public domain.
Okay.
Dude, I'm gonna write that screenplay now.
Right, yeah. No, right. Wait, is Nosferatu, is that like, that's a whole separate thing, right? Or is it?
Yeah, it's a separate thing. It's based on the exact same thing. Like exact same story, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. It's just the vampire is a Nosferatu, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. Well, speaking of blood, looks like the WWE can probably find some blood in the meantime with its rating change. Caleb, I want you to speak more about it, because I'm pretty sure you are clamoring to talk about WWE right now.
Oh my goodness, yes. All right, so for everybody that has enjoyed WWE, formerly WWF, Vince McMahon has been the brainchild behind its success. If you enjoy professional wrestling, whether you're in Japan enjoying New Japan Pro Wrestling, or you're in Mexico watching the Luchadors, you probably have some knowledge about WWE, because it became such a huge part of wrestling around the world. Like, WWE is a mega corporation, and a lot of it was fueled because of the eccentric nature of its owner, Vince McMahon. He made wrestling what it is today. It used to be just like a side carnival attraction. Like, you go to the fair and watch two people, you know, fake wrestle. And he made it a whole thing, put it on TV, millions of viewers. Everybody knows people like The Rock, Stone Cold. But it's gone through a lot of changes. In the 80s, you know, we all got the, you know, say your prayers, take your vitamins, America good, Soviet Union bad, you know, cheesy storylines that produced Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Sergeant Slaughter. But in the 90s, WWE got a little edge to it. They, you know, started blading a lot more. So blading is when a wrestler gets hit with something and they need to bleed. So a ref will secretly, you know, give them a razor blade and they would cut their head. Like that's where the blood would come from.
Oh.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. Blading was
Wow.
the whole thing. And it caused WWE to have a very hard TV 14. When I say hard, I mean they were, messing with the TV companies wanting to give them mature rating oftentimes because they would come out there and do wild things. For 90s television, wild. Like dudes bleeding, girls wearing bikinis, doing like twerk contests, like really wild television.
Yeah.
And then you have like that, country dude Stone Cold come beat up his boss. But WWE moved away from all that whenever a big guy that we all know, John Cena, came into play, and WWE entered its TV PG era, where it was, more geared towards kids. The whole point of John Cena, he was inspiring to the kids, and a lot of the content, around that changed. Like Vince McMahon actually said, "You are no longer allowed to blade without my permission," and he reduced it over and over and over until we got a very child-friendly, using the terminology, Disneyfied product. Well, WWE has plans to move to a television 14 rating on Monday Night Raw. This follows as Vince McMahon is finally retiring from WWE amidst a scandal that he paid hush money to keep a victim of sexual harassment silent, and also to keep his extramarital affairs silent. Growing up watching WWE, when somebody said Vince McMahon paid some girl to, not talk about his affair with her, it's like, yeah, that sounds, like a thing. But then they said, it's also a little bit more serious, that he may have like forced himself on somebody. And the sad thing is, I did hear those rumors, growing up. Like there's actually a long-standing rumor. And this is really crazy. Deep wrestling fans like know about this, but there's a rumor that Vince would even like assault his male talent. Like he would hold being the top in the company in exchange for something, and that he particularly did something to Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. And that's how Shawn Michaels ended up becoming the big superstar at the time that he was in the company. So whenever that came out, I was like, yeah, that seems to be who Vince McMahon is, really separate the artist from the product kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's really hard because WWE, Vince was very hands-on, and that era is over. And with that era ending, they're also going to move away from TV PG. And I think I'm excited to see what WWE will be like without Vince McMahon. It's currently going to be headed by his daughter, Stephanie McMahon. And I know her and her husband, Triple H, they're very big in the business. They understand the business of wrestling, and I think they'll do a good job. But what are the implications for this? Like WWE produced a lot of really weird storylines that were all Vince's idea.
Right,
like, did you know this guy? This guy is crazy. He pitched to his son and daughter that they do an incest storyline on TV.
What?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
I want to say like 20 years. I want to say it was in the 2000s.
What is wrong with this man?
Dude, he's a weird guy. He's freaking weird. Like he hangs out with to give you a hint, like the type of person he is, he hangs out with like Trump.
Oh.
And so he just has like a lot of very eccentric television players. Like he is all about creating content. Like he is a content creator, and he's willing to throw anything at the wall to see if it works.
Well, I gotta ask you though, it's like where the WWE is right now, even though he is retiring, do you think, and not disregarding his accusations, it's like, do you think the WWE sort of benefited off of that sort of edginess, weirdness, and just like willing to do anything for content? Because I feel like WWE is something like that.
Yeah, I do, because it allowed WWE to adapt as culture changed. And then I would even argue be like somewhat of a more, in some cases, like a positive element. And what I mean by that is whenever I was a kid, WWE would treat the women wrestlers pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was, the late 90s, early 2000s. And I would say that a lot of people had just, misogynist outlooks on women in media. Like they expected the women wrestlers to not really be wrestlers, but to be, essentially Playboy models.
Right.
A lot of them were Playboy models, actually. and to, watch them wrestle in, like, I remember watching them wrestle in pudding. I was like, pretty demeaning. That wouldn't happen today, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
WWE transformed because it recognized that people didn't necessarily want to see women like that. Like, a larger audience wanted to see women treated as equals and given the shot to compete and perform. And they crushed it. And when I say they crushed it, I mean the best wrestler in the entire world, talent-wise, is Charlotte Flair, Ric Flair's daughter. Like, she's exceptionally gifted. Yeah, people like Ronda Rousey and WWE, and they're killing it every week. They go out there and they kill it. And I think that was a positive change, because I think Vince was always willing to, recognize where people were shifting. And I know people say, oh, it used to be that really negative, misogynistic stuff because Vince was a misogynist. But I think it's just always Vince was like, what do people want to watch in this day and age? And if it worked, that's what he was going to do. And I don't think, in the same vein, he was a feminist because he allowed the women to compete. I think he just recognized, yeah, people want to, see women receive equality. So that's what we're going to put on the TV now.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being a positive thing. Like, women weren't allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, which WWE had multiple shows booked, and it caused a whole scandal. But Saudi Arabia, a country where, like, women do not necessarily have the same type of freedoms that they do in a place like here.
Yeah.
They actually opened up to it. And eventually the women got to go wrestle there in their outfits. They weren't, like, forced to wear, like, any type of cover up whatsoever. And I think that's a positive thing, like, that means, like, girls in Saudi Arabia get some new women heroes to look up to.
Yeah.
Like, they're not excluded. So I think that's the positive thing that comes out of his just willingness to do anything. And I think major pop culture icons like John Cena, there's no John Cena without Vince McMahon. There is no Dwayne Johnson without Vince McMahon. There's no Stone Cold without Vince McMahon.
Right.
So who knows what happens next? So I think that the company's going to take a nosedive completely in terms of quality and content. No, I think they're already there right now. They've been kind of poor in recent years because they have this guy named Roman Reigns that kids love to the point of him getting an ultra push, and he's unbeatable and he's not fun to watch. He has no charisma.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy since he's cousins with The Rock. Like, think about that. The Rock could come out there and spit fire in a microphone, and Roman Reigns one time actually said "suffering succotash" during a live event. Like, think about, like, how much of a dud that is. And we live in the era where people go see, like, Dave Chappelle stand up or George Carlin, like, they've seen, like, all sorts of funny, like, people that can just absolutely liquefy the microphone, like, on improv. And this dude's out here in front of 20,000 people quoting fucking Looney Tunes.
Right.
So I think the product will improve. And I do think, like, a thing that will help the product improve is because I personally don't have the evidence, but my hunch is that Vince probably did do this stuff, and that's why he's retiring.
Yeah.
I think getting that type of negativity out of the locker room, out away from the employees, will be a net good. I think it will make people probably more comfortable. Like, you won't have that big bad boss that, becomes the center of storylines because he's such a dictator at work. And he was a dictator at work. The way he said it went, period.
Right. So
I'm excited for those types of changes. I'm also excited to see if, some of the formula changes. Like, I'm kind of tired of the big brolic dude being the face of the company. We've had Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, Roman Reigns, John Cena. Like, when is, the more athletic, high flying people like the Mysterios, the AJ Styles, when do they get to be the face of the company? When can we definitively say that a woman is the face of the company?
Oh, right.
I think maybe that comes with Vince's departure, but I don't know. It's such a weird feeling.
Yeah.
I've only ever known Vince though.
Exactly. Well, with the rating change, like, thinking about all those years ago when I was watching WWE, it's like one of the things I know I was missing, and, like, leading up to today's WWE, is that edge, right? Like, I want characters like the Boogeyman and, like, this more edgier characters in the sense that they're just kind of more cool, or maybe it's just like, is Roman Reigns Raw or SmackDown?
Roman Reigns is currently on SmackDown.
Okay, so is SmackDown more sort of like neutral characters in the sense of, like, they're sort of personality and like sort of outfit than Raw, because I think Raw has always been the more eccentric, sort of more out there sort of cast of characters.
It switches. Like they do like drafts where they'll assign superstars, but the way WWE will assign their superstars, they will have a flagship show, which is the show that's going to bring in the most viewers and the most money. Historically, it's been Raw, but I think in recent years it has been SmackDown because SmackDown got that fat. When I say fat, I mean a fat deal with Fox. So they immediately threw a lot of their talent over to SmackDown, and Raw was a little bit more lackluster. So it can be a mix. The big faces and names will just be on the show that more people are watching usually. Maybe you have a big name on the other one to, make it watchable or, have a draw, but, Lesnar's on SmackDown, Reigns is on SmackDown. Ooh, dude. Actually, Brock Lesnar walked out of SmackDown after hearing that Vince McMahon retired.
Wait, real? Like out of like protest?
He was very mad. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, he was very upset. And that's the thing. Vince does have a relationship with a lot of superstars. Like he's really close to them. Like John Cena is very close with him. Like John Cena was made by Vince. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So a lot of them may have that personal attachment to where they don't want to be a part of that product without it. And for the first time in like 2 decades, WWE has a competitor, All Elite Wrestling, which is
what's it called?
Kind of struggling right now, but I'm sure will pick up in quality again. Is a serious competitor. And I feel like something that always gave WWE a leg up was it had Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon's the guy that could pick up the phone and say, hey, Brock Lesnar, UFC champion, here's $6 million, come back and rock the house at my latest show. And then, make it happen. He's the dude that, calls Stone Cold and say, hey, I think you have one more match left in you. Or what if you delivered a stunner to me at WrestleMania 20 years later? And it's a huge deal. That's because of Vince. Right. So I wouldn't doubt that some superstars may not be interested in it anymore. They may just say, you know what, I'm with AEW, but what's at WWE anymore?
Right. Well, I just looked up AEW and I just saw CM Punk, right, smack dab. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of into this because, like, just looking at this roster, I'm like, these have some eccentric fighters. And, like, that's what wow, Mark Henry's in AEW?
Dude, AEW is legit. Wow. AEW is very good. Like, if you could watch watch their pay-per-views, their wrestling is legit. Yeah. And this is why I say they have a serious competitor. So wrestling got, like, really huge in other places, and there's a promotion in Japan called New Japan Pro Wrestling. And in Japan, it is a huge deal. Like, I'm talking, it's up there with like some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. It is very popular. And a bunch of American and Canadian wrestlers ended up going over to Japan because, they weren't quite good enough to make it in WWE, or they were tired of WWE and they just wanted, to do something else. So they went over to that promotion, and a lot of them became international, like, stars. Like, where people were saying, wow, this guy's better than anybody on WWE's roster. When's Vince going to hit him up? And Vince started throwing out paychecks. Right. Saying, hey, AJ Styles, I hear you're crushing it in New Japan. Like, come on in. Signed him immediately $10 million and pushed him to the top of the card. A lot of those guys came and founded AEW to have an alternative. Wrestling in WWE is more geared towards, like, entertainment. Think of it as like an Avengers film, or a Hulk film, Hulk smash kind of stuff. Right. New Japan was like John Wick, like stylish. Like, I'm talking, these people were the most gifted wrestlers you have ever seen. Like, they put on amazing matches that you just could not watch, like the most on the edge of your seat matches. And they brought it back to the US, and that's what AEW is founded on.
That's sick.
There's a lot of those people. They're that talented. They're gonna be around a while.
So I know how I would watch WWE because I think it's on cable. Like, how would I watch AEW?
It's on TBS.
Okay, cool.
But the pay-per-views, it kind of sucks. It's like old school WWE. You have to pay the money and buy the pay-per-view.
How much is the pay-per-view usually?
Pay-per-views are $60.
Okay, that's not terrible because I pay for the UFC pay-per-views and those are like $70. So I'm like, oh, But yeah.
Yeah, you definitely, if you're watching a pay-per-view AEW, you need to get some friends together, like everybody pitch in,
Exactly,
have a little
right,
party
yeah.
about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do want to end this off with one question. So, like you said, I didn't know that Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were the new heads of this new era of WWE. Are you confident in where they're going to take this?
Yeah, I think they love the business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and when I say loving the business, I'm talking about loving wrestling. Triple H was a wrestler, and I think the true artists of wrestling, the people that treat it as a craft, like something like theater mixed with sports,
mm-hmm.
they understand that they have a product that is wholly unique. You know, you go see it live, like you're going to the theater, like you're going to see Phantom or Sweeney Todd, but you watch action, you get soap opera storylines, like they understand like what it is and they love it.
Right.
And I feel like as long as they love the business enough to always want to put the best product out there, develop relationships with the wrestlers to where they feel like they can excel and be the best they can be to get a shot to prove to the world why they should be the top, then yeah, I think they'll crush it. And I do think they'll crush it.
Awesome. Yeah, because I'm super excited to see where WWE goes. Because like I said, I've kind of dropped off of the whole WWE high train, but if there's anybody that could lead WWE, I would firmly believe it would be Triple H. Like, what an iconic dude, man.
Mm-hmm.
Whole, like,
he's a goat.
Yes, legit. Like,
goat.
Yeah, the definition of the word. Like, he is just that man. But yeah, I'm sick. I'm really excited to see what's going on with WWE. But for our last convo, we got the bombshell. We're talking about Jordan Peele's Nope. It's his third film. Nope is a sci-fi, horror, comedy, a little bit of action in there sprinkled in. His third film, like I said, $68 million budget. And it opened with a $44 million debut, starring stars like Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out fame, Keke Palmer, classic, Stephen Ewan, my GOAT, and then Keith David, the classic. I think it's appropriate just to start this off with saying if we like the movie or not. We started this podcast. Caleb actually asked me, the very first thing is like, did you like or did you not like it? No. Actually, I want to do that real quick. So on 3, I want you to go either up if you liked it or down if you didn't. All right.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay. That's so you're neutral about it.
I wrote a review about it for the Webster Kirkwood Times.
Go ahead and check that out, by the way, on WebsterKirkwoodTimes.com. Go ahead and check that out.
And I gave it a B-.
Wow, that's generous.
The reason I gave it a B- is because I think that there were some things that I loved about this film, particularly like you see how truly talented Jordan Peele is at choosing the shots. And there are some great shots in this film. Like the cinematography is like peak at so many points. Mm-hmm. And also I feel like in a way it brought back like feelings I had of watching Jaws, like when you'd see the fin come out of the water and then go back under, like watching how he did something similar, like brought a feeling like that was similar using the UFO in the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
That was so cool to me. The characters were trash.
Yeah.
The story was a letdown.
Yes.
And like, you know, in the vein of The Boys, like, you're a fucking disappointment. You know?
Yeah, it's like there's so many things about this movie that I just did not like. I can't even think about something that I really did like besides maybe some of the performances. I think Keke Palmer nailed her. Like she was like always electric to look at in this movie. Every time she's on screen, like there's always a laugh comes out. You know, she's is her Keke Palmer herself, right? But like the movie as a whole is just really weak. I don't know where to start. It's just like I'll say this, and it's kind of disappointing. This movie peaked for me with that barn scene, right? When he goes into the barn and then like the lights are on, he walks back and then the lights turn back on, he like goes back and like there was almost a sense of body horror in the sense like these like little kids are like these like aliens. Well, we didn't know they were kids yet, but like when you thought those were the aliens that antagonists in the movie, like you felt chills, like the way they were just kind of peeking out of like the shadows and like the one that's peeking out the barn doors. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. Cause like up building up to that point, I was like, okay, this movie's acting is like a little bit slow right now. So to get that was like really assuring. Then for it all just to be a prank by little kids, I'm like, all right, we're back to square one. Let's see where else. Let's see where this is going. And it's just like this. Like I said, this movie never really develops into anything that I personally like. Looking at reviews, I feel like people like the spectacle of this movie in terms of the theme more than anything. Because I was reading that this movie is a huge allegory to like what people go to for the perfect shot. And it's like, I'm like, sure, but like, it's like the theming of a movie can rarely carry the quality, and I think Nope is a perfect example of that. I'm gonna take a break on what I didn't like. I want you to talk a little bit more about what you didn't like, I guess.
Well, let me ask you this. So in this film, I think there's this like really cool scene where the chimpanzees like killing everybody in the studio, and it's background for one of the characters, which is almost immediately killed off in the next scene. What was the point of all the time dedicated to that in the film? So like, what was the point for a lot of characters? Like, why were they there? And I also think,
go ahead.
Well, I think Keke Palmer like had to carry a lot of the emotional weight for this film because one character was purely like there for comedy, and Daniel Kaluuya. All right, I can't pronounce it right now.
I think it's Kaluuya. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's spelled like.
I know. I was struggling to get it off my tongue. But he was far too stoic in this film for me.
I agree. I think I think I don't know what video it was. I think I was watching Hot Ones, and then I think the host of that show really described his acting ability perfectly. That his silence and his stoicism and his like stonewall kind of demeanor, like it's a rare sort of ability to have no words speak a lot in his acting, and I think that's perfect for him. But like even comparing his performance in Get Out, like he was more of a more vigilant sort of role in that film versus Nope. Like in this film, he's more of a like you said, stoic. But I think that is off of the sense that he's kind of living that sort of trauma with his father. But going into things like, I want to talk about the ending real quick. And this is full spoiler, by the way. This movie completely, hit the fan for me when they were playing that whole Home Alone sort of thing with the, inflatable tube men. And it's like, that part was okay. I could deal with that. They made a whole plan of it. That was very set in stone. Then, everything started to develop. And then this whole, it was so confusing to me how the whole plan turned into let's kill this thing when I thought the only thing they were trying to do was just to get that perfect shot of the alien. So when Keke Palmer started to do the whole all right, let's go back to the sideshow and we're going to crank this thing, he's going to eat the whole balloon, and where did that plan come? It felt so random. Was that the plan from the beginning to kill this thing? I thought the only thing was just to get a picture of it. So
I think it was killed out of necessity to protect her brother, but there was a lot random about the TMZ guy.
Yeah,
what was that? That was stupid. Mind-numbingly dumb. I was like, okay, why? Okay, maybe Jordan Peele has a beef with TMZ. And he's like, I need to cast somebody as a TMZ reporter and just quickly kill them off. But it's just what is this doing in the film?
Right.
Other than to give you a quick little, kill, like a Scream movie or a slasher or some shit.
Mm-hmm. Even then, I think that out of all the ridiculousness in this film, I think that was probably one of the least ones. I could sort of see that happening, but even let's go back to the whole monkey thing. I feel like that was kind of that whole point with Steven Yeun and how that was sort of he's sort of monetizing that event that he experienced as a child in his home in his own little way. I think that was more interesting than the whole alien. And that's another thing. This thing they never really call it an alien. It Kaluuya's character, he described as an animal, which I think it's a very unique take on the whole alien sci-fi sort of genre. But even then, like they don't take it that far either. Like, and I think one of the reasons why it didn't hit that much because they showed the movie showed his hand way too early. Like he came to that realization really quickly. It's like one of the cool things about the whole like unidentified monster sort of genre is that build up to that point where you realize what it is. And some movies like Cloverfield, you never know what it is until like, you know, they made that one movie where they actually showed the monster. But like one of Cloverfield's biggest shining thing was that you never saw the monster. You just saw the spectacle of what it's doing to the city. And it's like that mystery and that build up of how the characters are dealing with that is what makes that movie great. And, you know, like the monster here just, it wasn't interesting at all. Like one of the final form where it's just pointing out this like green image, it's like our green thing. It's like, it's all just so damn random. And overall, I think this movie is just completely boring. Like, yeah.
I feel you about the barn scene being like the last scene in the film that you were like, oh God, and then it just kind of all went downhill from there. Yeah, I was scared in that scene, and then it was
that scene was perfect.
You know, it was a fake out. It was dope. And
yeah,
that was it. I thought we were gonna get like some little aliens like sign type thing. And like that's a film that I feel like you can't help but compare this to. Like they're both very similar, set on like a barn ranch about UFOs, but Signs by M. Night Shyamalan is a vastly superior film, and there's so many reasons to point as to why. Like they saved the money shots of the UFOs for very select scenes. Like very, very select, where it's almost not even really in the film, it's just the tension building. Every character in that film had a purpose. Like Joaquin Phoenix's character is, you know, hanging out at the mall or something, I think, and there's a recruiter there to remind him about how he, you know, failed in the minors. You know, Mel Gibson's character runs into the cop that was there when his wife died, or the guy that actually hit his wife, you know, and it all played into his grieving process. Everything had a point. This film, all over the place.
Yeah, it's just like, it feels like coming out of that theater, I was like, it wasn't a good what did I just watch. It was a like, what was the point of this movie? Like, it's just so meandering and boring, and I almost feel like that whole monkey thing was almost just put in there just because, like, everything just feels so randomly placed. And it brings me to a point of like looking at those positive reviews, and people are just like really appreciating it for the theme of the movie. And it's like, is that sort of like a thing with Jordan Peele now? Like, there will be that side of the fan base that just looks for that theming and really appreciates that versus the whole spectacle of the film. And like, I wanted to know, do you think that's sort of, I think the best way to put it is that sort of thinking sort of annoying and sort of a cope from saying that this is just a bad film and just sort of defaulting to what the movie wants to be with the message? Because like, if you look at Get Out, Us, and now Nope, these are very heavily thematic movies, if not just like, no, the viewer's headcanon just moving around and just what they think the movie is. So are these movies bigger than the spectacle that's put on screen, and that what should be appreciated is the message, or do you think that's not what it should be?
No, like, if I want a message in a film, I want it wrapped beautifully in an extravagant envelope with a, you know, special seal.
Right.
You can't just say the message is the golden ticket and deliver it to me on like a pile of poop. You know, you can't do that. Right. And I feel like in many regards, it's what this film kind of did. Like, I think a lot of people wanted this to be something more than it was, because it is disappointing. Like, Jordan Peele is very talented, and I don't think this film takes away from my view of him as a filmmaker at all. Like, it only served to show me that he has like so many strengths that he can continue to develop. And I think he'll be like one of the best names in horror. Like, I really do. If not already. Like, I mean, Us and Get Out were pretty good.
Right.
But that's why this one's like, ooh, you know, I don't know about this one. It'd be like if John Carpenter or Alfred Hitchcock had it done, kind of thing. And you just don't want to accept that maybe Rear Window wasn't as good as Psycho. That's just an example. Rear Window was really good.
Yeah, and like, you know, thinking back to, I remember just like having my little thoughts of like how I think this movie's going to go, like during the movie when I was watching it. I was really hoping for this film to be one of those sort of culture like stone moments where like it's gonna be a movie where like, you look up, right? You know, like because the whole thing with the clouds and all that, it's like a really dope idea in that it's fresh, it's original. So I was hoping that by the end of this movie, like it'll make me just look up and look at the clouds. But like since it's such a like a underdeveloped project in that it's not that great. Like it's not that cultural moment where it can make people just have that physical reaction outside of the theater, which is what I wanted. But I am curious. I've Jordan, actually before that, I didn't want to say that even though we didn't you thought it was mixed or just half and half, I thought it was pretty bad. I think Jordan Peele is at this point a name where everybody's gonna have their butts in the seat in that fourth film, right? No matter how bad this movie is to whoever it is who watched it, you're gonna be in that seat when Jordan Peele drops the fourth film, and hopefully, it's better than. Hopefully, you can maybe learn from the shortcomings or whatever. I think I heard. You know who Chris Stuckman is on YouTube?
So, yeah, I know who Chris Stuckman is. Yeah,
he perfectly described or compared Jordan Peele to M. Night Shyamalan in that where he has his great films and like his great runs, there are some duds in there, and it's like you can't hit all the time, right? You have to
unless you're Quentin Tarantino,
right? Yeah, it's just like I can accept one L right from Jordan Peele, and going forward, I can just hope that it's great. But I did want to ask a question. All right, did you want to comment on that real quick?
No, the only thing I wanted to comment on was the Chris Stuckman thing. Were you around whenever he rewrote like a scene from Batman v Superman, and it was like an atrocious rewrite that he ultimately like walked back on?
Really?
He was criticizing the film justifiably, but he was like going to show that he could do it better, and he rewrote a scene, and it was just as bad, like if not worse.
Well, as a side note, I don't know. I guess I'm like one of the few people, but I actually kind of like Batman vs Superman. I ain't gonna lie. I think you didn't like it? Nah, I that's a whole discussion. Maybe we'll do a whole another episode on that. But I did want to ask, ranking the Jordan Peele films up to this point. Get Out, Us. No.
Get Out's my favorite. Us is second. I feel like it's gonna be hard to top Get Out. Like there's great political humor in there that I think is just like. It's just so on point. So like in Get Out, whenever the dude's talking to Daniel Kaluuya, and he's like, "Oh, just to let you know, I voted for Obama twice. Would have voted a third time." That shit was so fucking funny because like I remember being in the theater and realizing not everybody got that reference, like what that joke was like meaning to do to talk about like these characters. And also, I think the whole premise of it is like super. Get Out was like just super freaky. Like, can you imagine people wanting to like take your body and like like that's scary.
And it's like at the same time, it's like even though Get Out does have that sort of like science fiction sort of thing with like replacing brains and bodies or whatever, it's in a way it's grounded, right? Like there's definitely some themes in there that like Black people especially can really relate with, and watch that movie and it's like, damn, like is that like that's something that I could see happening. It's like since it has that grounding to it, I think that's what makes Get Out such a cultural film. And like at this point, I think we can all say that Get Out is a classic film. For me, ranking wise, I think I'm exactly with you. Get Out number one. It's gonna be hard to top that. Us and then Nope. But any final comments on Jordan Peele? Nope. What is going moving forward?
I hope that if he like sees how people reacted to this one and that's not as good as Us and Get Out, that he doesn't feel pressured into like conforming to like older stuff. Like I think all artists just need to go with what they're feeling and doing at whatever point in time. And this one wasn't so great, but I'm excited for the next thing no matter what. Like you already had me sold with 2 peak horror films, like absolute peak horror films. So I hope Jordan Peele just, continues to make movies and be involved in more projects. And I'm sure this dud will be forgotten and we'll be watching something else. We'll be like, masterpiece. Exactly, right.
Yeah, I'm hyped for that Jordan Peele bounce back, man. Anyway, guys, that's the end of this episode of the Pop Cult Cast. We want to hear what you guys think. Tell us what you think about MCU. Tell us what you think about the whole Quidditch thing going on, and definitely tell us about your thoughts about Nope. But guys, we'll see you next time in episode 5. Have a good one.